This morning's scripture is from Paul's epistle to the Philippians, chapter 1. I give thanks to my God for your steady remembrance of me. In all my prayers for you, I make supplication with joy, for your fellowship in the gospel from the very first day until now, being confident of this very thing, that he who has begun the good work among you, the same will continue it until the day of our Lord Jesus Christ. And this is the right way for me to think of you all, for I have you in my heart, because through all my imprisonment and my defense and confirmation of the truth of the gospel, you have been partakers with me of grace. For God is my witness of how much I love you through the love of Jesus Christ. For this I pray, that your love may abound yet more and more in knowledge and in all spiritual understanding, so that you may choose the things that are excellent, and that you may be pure and without offense in the day of Christ, and be filled with the fruits of righteousness, which are by Jesus Christ to the glory and praise of God.
I'd like to talk about our place in the universe and how we got here. If we go back to the age of the European explorers, we know that Vespucci, Magellan, Columbus, the Vikings, and who knows who else, all sailed around the world exploring the planet. Recently, we've unearthed evidence that Christopher Columbus wasn't the first European explorer to discover America, aside from the Native American Indians. So who knows who deserves credit for discovering America? But had those explorers not had the vision to dream and to explore, who knows what state our country would be in today, or if it would even exist. We have those European explorers to thank for possessing the courage and stamina to sail and discover new lands. Many of us live near schools. Many schools are located along busy streets. One would hope that when building engineers, architects, and city planners got together to build our new schools, that crosswalks with traffic lights were automatically installed as part of the requirements for the new campus. But this didn't always happen. Sadly, in our history, there are many incidences where children were injured or killed by careless drivers, causing parents and school administrators to say, let's not ever have another child lose his life because we didn't have a traffic light at the crosswalk. Traffic lights were then installed for all future generations, and hopefully no more children lost their lives. Now, some children show up at school every day, and for as long as they can remember, there was always a traffic light at the crosswalk. What they don't realize is that students who went before them may have lost their life or limbs due to lack of a traffic light. Those younger children don't realize that the children who went before them lost their lives so that they could have a traffic light. We owe a debt of gratitude to those children who lost their lives so that future generations would be safe. The same is true with train intersections. School buses are required by law to stop at railroad crossings and make sure there isn't a train coming before they cross. I think we can assume that these laws came into effect because children lost their lives as a result of drivers having been careless. In fact, every new law or government agency that comes about as a response to a problem or an abuse. We have child labor laws because business owners exploited children. OSHA came into existence to regulate workplace safety because employers took advantage of regulations or the lack of regulations and made places unsafe, and people lost their lives. We have the Federal Aviation Administration to regulate aviation safety, because, again, we need safety in the skies. The same with traffic laws. We have traffic laws to keep people from driving recklessly because people can't seem to drive on their own without regulation. So in an election, when you hear people talk about the fact that government is too large, what do you cut? Labor? OSHA? The Federal Aviation Administration? The DMV? And of course, that's only a small part of the government. And yet each entity on its own is huge. Plain and simple, you can't. That's plain and simple. You just can't do away with any of those agencies. What agency would you do away with? In the recent elections, a woman running for governor of the state of California revealed that for 28 years of her life, she failed to vote. Assuming one must be 18 years to vote, you have to be 18 to vote, and that she didn't vote for the first 28 years she was eligible to vote, that would mean that for the first 46 years of her life, she failed to participate in our democracy. When you look back at history, specifically the suffragette movement in America, you'll find that many women went to jail trying to obtain the right to vote. Certainly at the beginning of our great nation's history, the framers of the Constitution felt that only white men should have the right to vote. African Americans were denied the right to vote, as were women. African Americans were considered slaves, and slavery was considered acceptable by the framers of our Constitution. We fought a civil war to get freedom for those African Americans, and we owe all those involved a debt of gratitude, not only for their struggle to free the slaves, but also to give them the right to vote, as well as those who struggled to give women the right to vote. We owe all of them a tremendous debt of gratitude. So when this woman campaigned recently to become governor of the great state of California, I was appalled to hear that she had shirked her responsibility to participate in our democratic system for well over half of her adult life. Fortunately, she lost. What's common in all these examples is that we owe debts of gratitude to those who came before us. In some cases, that debt is owed to those who are older than we are. Yet often, especially in our youth, we deny our elders. When I was a teenager, I thought that the only people who knew anything were other teens. Adults just didn't have a clue about anything, especially in the area of that which is hip. I know that when I was about 20, I thought 25 was over the hill. As I got older, I began to realize that the more I learned, the more questions I had, hence the more I realized I didn't know. Now that some time has passed, I also realize that many questions that remained unanswered when I was in school, we now have answers for, as science answers many of those questions that remained a mystery when I was still in school. I think the other observation that I find quite interesting is that those over 40 are invisible to those under, say, 25. I've noticed recently that when I walk down the street, I can try to make eye contact with each person I pass. Those my age and above are happy to make eye contact. I smile, they return the smile with a grin or even a friendly hello. Those, say, 10 years younger than I refuse to make eye contact and don't even see me, even if I'm standing right in front of them. Let me remind you that I stand 6'7" tall and that I'm very difficult to ignore, but I've seen many young people manage to do so with very little effort. Recently, I heard a comedian say that these young 20-year-olds should be worried about the time when the time comes that people don't see them walking down the street. Of course, when you're 20, you don't realize how soon it will be until you're 40, and the tables are turned. So my message to all the young people listening today is, make an effort to learn history. Take a look at the world around you and ask questions like, how did that get to be that way? And explore the answers. You may find yourself owing a debt of gratitude to someone who did something decades ago so that your life would be easier, safer, simpler, and more fun. When you get a chance to vote, don't shirk your responsibility. Go out and vote. I don't care who you vote for. The important aspect is that you participate in life. Participate in your political system. Use that opportunity you have been given to your advantage. After all, you don't know how many people suffered to get you that right. And if you do manage to figure out who those people are that fought so that you could have the right to do so, to do something, express gratitude, either silently or vociferously. Whatever method you choose, express that gratitude. When I was growing up, I often wandered the halls of the various Smithsonian museums. One hall that always amazed me were the various depictions of colonial doctors and dentists' offices. I recall that many of those depictions had jars labeled leeches. Apparently, if you were a doctor in colonial times, one of your standard tools was a jar of leeches. I never really believed that they kept these creatures in their offices, nor that anyone would allow another person or doctor to use these creatures for healing. Yet today, leeches are still commonly used around the world. They're considered safe and helpful. Who would have thought? Of course, the real scary offices depicted were the dentist's offices. There were all kinds of scary contraptions for extracting teeth, and who knows what terror a patient may have had to endure. I guess the other scary devices depicted were electroshock therapy devices. Some felt they produced helpful results. Seems to me that I wouldn't want to experience that kind of therapy for anything. The point is that for all the people who endured visits to the doctors and dentists in colonial times and lived to tell about it, we owe a tremendous debt of gratitude. The last time I had a cavity filled, the dentist used a laser to pulverize the decayed tooth. I needed no Novocaine, yet I felt no pain. I can recall having wished for such a procedure, but I never in my lifetime expected that the process of having cavities filled would become so painless. Years ago, the prospect of getting a filling was pretty bad. It took a long time. The dentist would fill you with 2 or 3 shots of Novocaine, then he would drill into your tooth. He would be certain that there was no pain, yet I would practically hit the ceiling. Filling a tooth was a long, slow, painful process. We have those who went before us to thank. They endured incredible pain, and over time, their demand, along with the aid of technology, brought about new methods of filling teeth without pain. We have all those patients who came before us to thank. The same is true today in medicine. When people were told their lives were in jeopardy, they became willing to take chances and try new therapies to save their lives. As a result, medical advances are achieved daily, which ultimately improve the quality of all of our lives. We owe a debt of gratitude to all those who went before us, some of whom sacrificed their lives as guinea pigs for the advancement of medical science. Viagra came on the medical scene as a drug which was being used for angina to control blood pressure. Doctors noticed that there was a side effect that improved the sex lives of older couples. Suddenly we had a whole new genre of medications. So when you look at your place in the world today, remember that there were many, many souls who came before you. They might not have known as much as you do. They might not have been as wealthy as you are. They might not have had as much love in their lives as you do. They might not have had all the blessings that you have been fortunate enough to be blessed with. But in one way or another, they just might be responsible for you having something you might not have had, or that some aspect of your life is safer had they not gone before you. The woman who failed to vote for 28 years of her life apparently doesn't understand that thousands and thousands of women suffered throughout their lives, struggled, and even went to jail to obtain the right to vote so that every woman would have the opportunity in the future to do so. Learn about your rights. Study your history. Get to know your local museums. Learn from your parents and grandparents. Don't take your blessings for granted. And once you understand your heritage, your history, the story of your ancestors, honor those people and express gratitude for their amazing gifts. Remember, you have more to be grateful for than you realize. Make an effort today to learn about, understand, and get in touch with that gratitude and the history that's responsible for bringing that gratitude about. If it weren't for those people who came before you, your place in the world today might be very different. Think about that today as you go through your routine.